Hi, everybody. Jenny Jetson here again. Thanks for listening and tuning in to my second episode. The first episode was a great introduction, and I think this week we said that we were going to talk about getting you back to work, what to expect, and a few tips. So I wanted to dive right in. It's Memorial Day weekend, at least it is when I'm recording this. I hope that you are getting out a bit safely with a little bit of socialization, responsible socialization. I'm in California. It's great weather here. It was a beautiful morning. Went for a bike ride, and there were definitely a lot of people out on the trail, which was nice to see. Tons of family. I think biking's going to make a comeback. I think camping's going to make a comeback. If there's a drive-in movie theaters, I think are going to be big. Uh, and however it is that you get out and get into the world a little bit, I hope you do it safely. So again, I'm Jenny Jetson from Surviving to Thriving. My goal again is to talk about my experience of surviving multiple gunshot wounds and then getting my life back up and functioning again. Um, I know that I seem pretty bright-eyed and bushy-tailed when I record these videos, and in life in general, I tend to be pretty upbeat, but I don't want people who are in the middle of dealing with trauma and PTSD or whatever it is that you're going through in your life. I don't want you to think that it wasn't difficult and an effort, and um, it's still not difficult for me to deal with, and it is still an effort. I take it with me all the time. So I certainly don't want to seem flippant and that it's an easy thing and oh, it was so simple for me and just get over it and move on. That's not going to be my intention, and I certainly don't want to come across that way. I just wanted to address that because I know I use humor a lot in my life to either diffuse situations or mitigate situations at times. It's a tool that I have used in my past and in my present and probably in my future because humor helps. Uh, so I'm not flippant about this subject at all, but I am very positive. I think I have a great attitude, and that's what I'm looking to talk about and share with everyone today. So let's get down a little bit. The early stages, again, what happened to me is I was shot twice in my home. It was an intruder who had broken in before, 6 weeks before. So I knew this person. I saw them coming at me at the front door with the gun, shooting through the house, through the gun, broke down the door with brute force. I ran into the bathroom, had a friend jump into the bathtub for safety, and I got shot through the chest right about here. I don't know if you can see that's the bullet wound. The side boob saved my life, as I like to say. I got shot and went down on the ground for safety before I could make it into the bathtub. So it took a lot of effort to get up and moving. And, I can go more into detail for those who are interested. You can visit me at iamjennyjetson.com. And I hope to have a little bit more in-depth information there for specifically for violence, gunshot wound survivors, and anybody else who really wants to hear the story and have some takeaways. But for the series that we're doing here today, it's all about helping people transition back to work with COVID after the shut in place with COVID-19. Really drawing and pulling on my experience from surviving the trauma, which I do a lot. So if I think back to the times for me, right when I started to really focus on my healing of this horrific incident that happened in my life all of a sudden. And I think about when I really had to take a step back and take care of myself. I was staying at my friend's house, Tom and Jen, wonderful, wonderful couple. I adore them dearly, dearly. I was lucky to have them. They had an extra room in their house and allowed me to heal from my knee surgery there until I could get well enough to take care of my daughter and find a job and a place to live ultimately. And as my mind was racing and trying to process everything that had just happened to me, by the time I moved into that house, it was about a week I would say 10 days after this happened, a week after I got out of the hospital for sure. My mind was racing, right? I'm getting doctor's bills, $250,000, by the way. If you've never gotten, I think it was actually $380,000 was the doctor's bill for a few nights stay emergency medical care at Stanford University. The life flight alone was $36,000 to take me, I think it was 12 miles as the crow flies. So not having a house, getting huge doctor bills. I didn't have a job at the time. So, didn't have the best insurance, let's say. Um, my kid's living someplace else. My dog is living someplace else. I don't have a job. I don't have a job. I don't have my dog. And I don't have the use of my leg. It was very painful and hugely swollen. And I'm on crutches and terrified to fall asleep every night early on because I didn't know what nightmares were awaiting me once I fell asleep. A lot of anxiety. Um, Walking around on crutches is not an easy thing and it's quite exhausting in and of itself. I'm a coffee drinker, so try walking across the room with a cup of coffee when you're in crutches. It takes a lot of effort to do little things. Can definitely tell why disabled people, you don't see them very often because even with the best intentions that we have in almost every store, if you have a person who can't use your arms, it's very difficult to move around and find things that can be helpful. But that's a whole other subject. Anyway, the point is there was a lot of stress going on in my brain, and I was so worried, and I thought to myself, all right, this is kind of the real thing. I thought to myself, Jenny, if you don't calm yourself down, you're going to have a heart attack and die. That's what I thought. I thought you're going to have a heart attack and you're going to die. You're going to stroke out. You're going to have a heart attack. You can't take any more stress. You've got all of these things that are going on in your life, but none of them can you do much to help that right this minute, really. If people tried to collect money, you can't get you can't get blood from a stone, is what I was thinking. Is that the right saying? But so I just thought, the most important thing that I can do is to help myself heal and just to focus on what is right in front of me because you can't control anything else besides what's in front of you right now. So really focus on that, which is what I did. When my mind would start to race and I would have all of these worries and concerns and the paperwork coming in and trying to get organized and fix everything or figure out what I'm going to do and make a plan, right? None of that really needed to happen right at that moment. It's like when you're sick and you have the flu or a cold. Sometimes it's best just to take a step back and let your body heal and start to function correctly. So I really went back to basics. I made sure that I was eating. I made sure that I was drinking enough water. I made sure that I was sleeping, however you can get your sleep. And making sure that I was going to the bathroom on a regular basis, which is always a good sign, right? Are you regular, number one and number two? It's a good sign when you're on pain medication and all of that stuff, your body starts to, your intestines tends to seize up a little bit. So it was important to kind of get back into the normal rhythm and the flow. And if your body starts to respond, even when your mind is going crazy, at least you're making a little bit of progress along the way. And then beyond that, I began to really just look out of the window and see a tree or listen to the breeze blow by. Where I was staying, there was an amusement park. There still is an amusement park close by, which is kind of fun on the weekends and in the evenings. You could hear people on rides screaming and laughing and having a really good time. And all of those things helped to ground me in the moment where I was and helped me not get overwhelmed when I had every right to be completely and totally overwhelmed. So I learned pretty quickly that we have power over our brain and our thought. So if you're finding yourself in an anxious place, if you drove 20 minutes in your vehicle and don't remember the drive, you're probably in your head. And I will be the first one to recommend that you really need to get control over the thoughts that you're having in your brain. And if you're finding yourself in the negative space, change it, do something else. You need to get your brain off of what it's focused on because it's not helping you. Part of that is you need to help your brain heal. When you are in a trauma state, when your brain has experienced a trauma, all of your blood, this is a very simplified form, all of your blood pretty much goes to the base of your amygdala. And the reasoning and the rational part of your brain, which is up front, is not getting as much of the blood flow. And the back of your brain is going to suck it up. And you need to reconnect the back of the brain through the front of the brain so that the front of the brain begins to function more normally and correctly. There are many ways that you can do that, which I'm not going to get into right now. But slowing your brain, the easiest way is to slow your brain and just to focus on what's in front of you. Meditation is a great way. For some people, that's exercise if you can do that. But get out of the worry and the constant negativity and the story that you have going on in your brain, because that is not going to help you physically heal at all. It's going to work against you. It's going to take yourself and your body a bit longer. So I would focus on trying to quiet your brain. And along with that, I'm going to say that probably the biggest gift, the strength that will come out of your traumatic situation is the ability to compartmentalize. Man, once I said the word correctly, I was worried I was going to stumble through that. But being able to compartmentalize my brain is something that I was not really masterful of doing before I had trauma, but man, am I good at it now. I've really, really benefited from that a lot. Most people who have gone through trauma, violent trauma in particular, are able to turn off their brain and not think about, of course, the horrible thing that happened to them and what they're trying to forget, or what their brain is, not letting them to forget because they haven't processed it and it keeps, coming up right in front of them. So compartmentalizing not just the trauma aspect of life, but everything else. Like, I'm just going to focus on what I'm going to focus on right now, and everything else is just going to have to wait its turn. So compartmentalization is really a great strength that I've gotten through my situation. It's made me, I think, a better, stronger person when I remember to do it. But it's a skill that I had to adapt and learn quite quickly. So now, when, what else? What else? So I'm going to give you some tips and some tricks. If people are, when you're going through this, especially in the early stages, people are going to, you know, want to reach out and help. They're going to ask and look to you usually for some kind of, oh, how you might need some help, which is not really helpful. It's just, it felt like to me more to do is to tell people how to help me. So what I've done is I've put together just, 10 ways that you can help someone deal with really the early aftermath of a traumatic experience. So, we all will have trauma at some point in our lives. But until it happens to you, really knowing how to support someone after a traumatic event can be really, really difficult. And again, in the wake of COVID-19 and shelter in place, so many people are soon going to be returning back to work and having experienced maybe some kind of traumatic experiences beyond what you experienced. So, as a survivor of multiple gunshot wounds, I really learned firsthand how difficult it can be, not only to deal with trauma but to re-enter the workforce. So if you're looking for ways to be helpful, trauma or no trauma, I thought it would be good to talk about, kind of here 10 ways that you can really help people who are coming back after a traumatic experience. The first one, number one, really just to listen, as simple as that. Most individuals that are kind enough to reach out and check in on people who have had some kind of trauma, death, near death experience, cancer recovery, loss of some sort. Most people are very awkward. Oh, that's my timer. Means I've got a few more minutes to go. Okay. So, first one, listen, do not be afraid to call them up and ask them, how's your trauma doing? How are you doing with your recovery? Tell me everything. Give them 10 minutes. They will be grateful. The second tip that I will give you is avoid cliches. Just avoid them. I mean, under normal circumstances, cliches can be meaningless conversation fillers. I would say void of meaning and originality. In an awkward social situation, we tend to use them even more, right? But to the person who just lost their identity, the person who feels like their ground has just been, taken out from underneath them, hearing another, you've got this. What doesn't kill you make you stronger. Everything happens for a reason. You're going to be great. Life will get back to normal. It's just not helpful, right? It's just not helpful. So my suggestion would be avoid cliches, and when in doubt, if you don't know what to say, a very simple, well, this sure fucking sucks, is often very well received. Can I say effing? Sorry, everybody. Well, this sure sucks is often well received. Number three, lend a hand. Really, lend a hand. I would say, really, in the day to day stuff. You're going to get some pushback on here, but we all have to-do lists, right? We all have to-do lists with multiple items on them. When you've got your voice going on instead of everything that you've got to do, that's going to be part of the chatter. So I would say the best way to handle that is just tell the person that you're going to head over to their house for a couple hours on Sunday. For all of these, you're going to have to adjust to how you can help into the workplace. But just tell them that you're coming over, you're going to spend 2 hours at their house, and you're just going to do things. And it could be very simple things like picking up dry cleaning, fixing a fence, hauling out the garbage and the recycling to and from the street. Like, if you could take that on for 2 months, just have that be, and that's all you did, it would be huge. I hate taking the garbage out. You need both hands. It's dirty. You always forget. But if you were to do a simple task like that, lend them tools, fix a fence, make a meal, do a load of laundry, clean a bathroom, small things to make their lives more enjoyable as they're healing would be really, really big. The fourth one of my favorites, is humor. Humor helps a lot. Get everybody out of an awkward situation. If you're good at humor, come over, throw food at someone, make a joke, pretend to fall, make fun of someone else, tell funny stories. Humor is a great way to really lighten a room. So if you're funny, I would say find the funny and keep going for sure. Stay connected. Check on them once a week, once every 2 weeks. Very few people will have the longevity to continue to ask them how they're doing. So I would stay connected. Send them a card, send them an email. Sometimes a phone call might not be the best if they're not in the mood to have a conversation, but I would just reach out, ask them how they're doing. Don't expect a response. It's really a selfless act, but I would stay connected. Make a plan for them. This is really great. So your brain is going to be functioning on a way better, uncluttered level than people who have experienced any kind of clutter. So what you can do is, like, if you know something that needs to happen, I would just take care of it, right? If there's a way that you can help them, and you're wondering if they're thinking about it, just take care of it for them. Just bring them the information. I would avoid saying things like, have you thought of, what you consider, maybe you should look into. Giving someone with a lot on their plate more to do, ideas to think about, they're running through, I in particular, running through every seniority. Should I move here? Should I move there? New job. What about this? How am I going to handle that? Giving somebody who's experienced trauma, their brain is already, on heightened alert, and giving them more to think about or consider is not really helpful at all. So if you want to take action for them, and we'll talk about that maybe a little bit more, but do it for them. That would be great. Let's see. Number 7, pay them a visit, show up in person, right? Sunday dinners at their house, maybe watch your favorite sports game, Thursday night TV or whatever. Just show up, pay a visit, sit on the couch, do nothing. You don't have to entertain them. Just having another person in the space is great, face to face. At work, stop by their cubicle, say hello, meet them for coffee at 3 o'clock, take them to lunch, but pay a visit, go to them. Don't expect them to come to you. Make it easy for them to accept an invitation by continuously showing up. It checks on them. It's a mental health check. Think of it like that. Bring the world to them is number 8. Again, especially if somebody is bedridden and they're healing, bring the world to them. A new, what's going on in the world. Talk about a new restaurant that has opened up. Maybe you went to a sporting event. Whatever is happening in your life outside of their immediate surroundings, it's nice to hear about what's going on for somebody else, emotionally, physically. Don't be afraid to talk about yourself and share stories and experiences, right? It's very helpful if they can feel connected with what's going on in the world. Business deals, all of that is fine. Just clients, customers, don't be afraid to bring the world to them and give them something else to think about from time to time. Number 9, 2 more to go. Number 9 is really being patient with them and being present. Try not to put their healing process on your timetable, right? Don't project to them what you would do in that situation or what you've done in the past. It's not fair. So I would say, empathy helps here. When you are with them, try and connect with them and give them that time. Unless you're working on your honeydew list, then get to work. But try and be present, be patient with them. And I think the top 10 thing that you can do to be generous with a trauma patient is really just be yourself, be you, be transparently you. No need to come with like deep inspirational jargon and, Teapot Chopra. I just mispronounced his name, but you don't have to be some guru of spirituality. Just be yourself. If talking about your issues and your kids driving you nuts, sometimes hearing about somebody else's issues and problems and what's going on for them is a really nice break, right? So be you. Don't be afraid to get to be on the personal level. Fight with the spouse who's driving you crazy, right? How that's affecting you. Oh, it's okay to express emotion. And it's really helpful with people who have gone through trauma to give them a generous space to be able to express their emotion, to say that it's really tough or they're doing great. But don't be afraid to be yourself. You're going to have to adjust these top 10 things to your work environment a bit. But in general, I think if you can pick something on here that spoke to you, the person that you're supporting, I think, will benefit it greatly. So let's see, a few more things. Now, getting back into the work, how does all of this really translate into the workspace? So I would say that when you're at work, you can expect a few things. Your anxiety level, your stress level, you're kind of walking in the building if you're unprepared at a heightened state. So what I used to do is I was in traffic. I'd never had traffic before, and my traffic was, an hour plus each way. And it really got me in a very heightened state of anxiety. People cutting me off, really not so much me, but it was just really hard watching the ugly behavior of the other humans around me. Really just poor behavior of other people would just, it made me unhappy. It just was really hard to look at. So what I would do is if I was really, in a high anxiety state, I would meditate in my car for 5 minutes. I would find a 5-minute mindful meditation and I would sit in my car and I would breathe and do the meditation and kind of ground myself, which was very helpful. Sometime when I got better at the traffic and I could anticipate it, I would find music stations that I really liked on Pandora. Sometimes I would listen to comedy. Jim Gaffigan comedy was, funny and clean, kind of positive, which is helpful. I would have phone calls, friends and family. That was always helpful. It made the traffic go by quickly. Once in the office, you might find that your patience might be on shorter supply than it was before, or that you might become frustrated more easily, or if you have an obstacle or any kind of criticism, negative feedback, you might respond at a more heightened state than you did in the past. Know that it's your brain, and it's not you. It's your PTSD. It's your trauma. It's your brain going back to the back of the brain instead of the front of the brain, because it's at a heightened state still, and you're going to need to calm that through meditation. There's a couple of ways that you can do it, which again we can talk about it at another state, and how I did that specifically. I'll get into that at later episodes. But have patience with yourself and forgive yourself for feeling frustrated. Forgive yourself for having angry thoughts at the person who is either giving you negative feedback or doing something that you are not in agreement with. It's not you, it's not them, it's your brain. You need to be aware of that, and take a step back, do a little bit of breathing, remove yourself from the situation, take a walk, get some coffee, reset, shake it off, and then it's time to get back in. Jenny Jetson, what do you think? This is it for this episode, today's episode. Next week, I am going to talk about forgiveness, which is huge, very important. It's a tool to use, and how you can bring forgiveness. We talked about it a little bit here, how you can bring forgiveness and spirit into your workplace so that you can stay inspired and grounded, right? It's all about worrying less, loving and forgiving yourself more, others around you. We're all in it together. Trauma, who knew? We're all in it together. Let's heal our brain. Let's be positive people. We're going to get through this together. I got through it. I'm going to get through it this time. I'm going to help you do the same. Thank you for listening. You can visit me on iamjennyjetson.com. I'm going to post this video if it turns out even halfway distant on YouTube. Please like it. Any comments, subjects that you would like me to talk about sooner rather than later, I'd like to hear about. Twitter and Facebook, again, those are other ways that you can reach out to me, or via my website. I am here to support and give back anybody who needs it. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.